all these people. And what happened year after year is the Jewish were very devout. And Mary and Joseph were very devout people. And they would go to Jerusalem for the Passover. And they would do this year after year. Now, the women and the children didn't have to go. But because Joseph and Mary were very devout Jews, Mary went and the children went. But also, Mary and Joseph were devout Jews where they knew the Torah, which is the Hebrew Bible. They knew the laws of the Torah. They were very devout. And so they're traveling along, and there's all these people, because they traveled in caravans, not cars, not soccer mom cars, but caravans, a bunch of people. And so, anyhow, they were traveling with caravans, and they went around, and they said, after a day of walking, they said, "Where is our son Jesus?" So they had to backtrack to find their son Jesus, and had no idea where he was. Now, you mothers, could you imagine this? You guys are probably, I'd be irate. But this is like the movie Home Alone. So Home Alone, at this Christmas time, some of you probably have saw it. What happens in Home Alone is they have a sleepover and all the extended family is there. And the son is around 12 years old, like Jesus in this text. And in Home Alone, they leave, they're running for the airport, and they're running to catch their plane to Paris. And they get on the plane, they're going over to Paris, and everyone's enjoying themselves, they're complaining on the plane, and they realize that their son Kevin isn't there. So they have to go and land, and when the mother lands, she decides to take and go back to the United States to see her son who was left home. And she goes through all these obstacles. One scene, she's in the back of some kind of U-Haul or something with John Candy with a polka band. So she goes through all these crazy obstacles to get home to her son. And her son has all these obstacles to overcome because criminals are trying to rob their house, and he sets up these toy traps, and the people come in, and it's an obstacle course, and they can't take the possessions. Finally, the mother and the family meets up with the son. So this is what happens. 3 days, Mary was going through these obstacles to try to find Jesus. Probably looking all over for him. Her and Joseph looking for Jesus. Then they find him in the temple, and he is preaching, teaching, learning, and he was just astounding of what he was doing. They had never seen anything like this. A 12-year-old boy prodigy knew the laws better than anybody. He had them so in awe of what he was doing. This was Jesus. But Mary comes in, and she's a little ticked. She says, "What? You made your father and me very worried." And Jesus comes back and says, "You shouldn't be worried. I'm in my Father's house." Now, Jesus wasn't being disobedient to his mother. He was always obedient to his parents. He wasn't being disobedient. What he was doing was he was pulling away from his earthly parents to divineness. And he was explaining to them that he was with his fatherly parent, with God in the holy temple. So he's pulling away from his earthly parents. Mary and Joseph didn't understand this, what he exactly was saying. But they went back to Nazareth, and he was obedient. So Jesus wasn't disobedient. But what he was doing was he was sharpening his skills. He understood the law. He was practicing the law. And he was preaching and teaching and getting ready for his ministry, preparing for his ministry. Because at the age of 29, he was going to go out into the ministry, and there was going to be a lot of negativity. There was going to be a lot of people trying to come after him, and he had to turn negatives into positives. And he had a lot of struggle. So he was preparing himself for the law in the temple, as he prepared himself before his ministry in the desert through temptation. In and prepared himself to be baptized with John the Baptist. He was preparing himself. So he strengthened his skills. So God has plans for us. It doesn't matter what age we are. God has plans. We may be retired. We may be, 80 or 90 years of age, but God still has plans for us. We can still bless people. But we have to sharpen our skills. And we have to strengthen what we're good at, the blessings that God gave us. We have to keep sharpening them, like Jesus was sharpening his skills in the temple. But we also have to sharpen our weaknesses, because God has a plan for us. And people that are retired or 80 to 90, 70s, God still has a plan for you. God is going to put you where he wants you to be. But you have to keep sharpening your skills. And also, so you are going to be able to bless people. Don't think you don't go through a day without blessing people. So keep doing what you're doing, but also sharpen your weaknesses. But also, people that are in a position, some of you may be in a position with your job that you cannot stand, or don't have a job, that you have to work and sharpen your skills. Things do not come easy in life. You have to work and keep getting experience. Like Jesus was getting experience. He didn't go out at 12 and start his ministry. He went out at 29. When you're ready, when God's ready for you. So keep getting experience. Keep trying. Keep doing what you were doing, but get better at what you're doing. Is what I'm trying to say, is get the experience you need to be where God's plan is for you to be at. And also, if you are already in a spot that you already are, you like your position, or you really like it, what you're doing, you're a musician, you're an author, if you really like what you're doing in life, you still have to sharpen your skills. You still have to take care of your weaknesses to get better and better and better. Example of authors, great authors, what they do to sharpen their skills is they read a lot. That's how they sharpen their skills. Musicians, they keep playing and playing and playing and playing. Stevie Ray Vaughan played so much that the fingertips, and I'm not saying you guys have to do this, you'll like this, Michael. His fingertips, you should do this with the drum, would actually literally come off, and he would super glue the skin right back on his hands and keep playing. No, you don't have to do that with the drums. But anyhow, you don't have to do that, but you have to hone your skills. Keep doing what you're doing. And take care of your weaknesses. So, success is about turning negativity into positivity. There's 4 things that I'm talking about success here that Jesus was able to do throughout his ministry. He prepared himself through the temple and through his ministry for the 3 years that he did in ministry. He was preparing himself for success. And when he would turn negatives into positives. The Pharisees would come after him on the Sabbath and say to him, "You should not be working." And he would turn that and say, "Well, why do you take your ox to the water?" He would turn negatives into positive. Jesus prepared himself for his ministry. He would take negatives and just brush them off. If you're going to be successful, you have to take the negatives and all the things negative people say about you and just brush them off. You have to have tough skin. Now, I have a hard time with this at times, but you have to have rhinoceros skin to be successful. You have to brush it off. And you have to sharpen your skills and get better and better and better at things. And, most importantly, you have to be willing to fail. Organizations, churches, people that are so successful, they are successful because they fail. It's very imperative. Let me give you some examples. Henry Ford went bankrupt 5 times before Ford Industries, Motor Industries. Macy's was started by a man that his store went under 7 times before he got a successful store in New York City. Einstein didn't talk till he was 4, couldn't read till he was 7. The teacher said he was mentally slow. He got expelled from a school, didn't get admitted to a university in Zurich, and he's one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. Edison, this is Edison's greatness. This turns negatives into positives. This reporter said to him, Edison, who did the light bulb, he says, what's it feel like to fail over 1,000 times? Because Edison, it took over 1,000 times he failed to finally get the light bulb. And Edison wiped off the negativity of the reporter and turned a negative into a positive. And he said to him, he said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. It just took over 1,000 steps to create the light bulb. And you know I'm a big sports fan, so I got to bring up Michael Jordan, and I got my opinion that he's the greatest player of all time. But Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. The greatest player to ever play the game of basketball got cut by his basketball team in high school. Unbelievable. As Jordan says, quote unquote, he said, I have missed 9,000 points in my career. I have over 300 games, around 300 games I have lost. They've given me the ball to shoot the winning basket 26 times, and I've missed. And Michael Jordan says, I fail over and over and over again, but that's what makes me succeed. No one worked harder than Jordan. I remember watching him being out there shooting foul shots. He worked very hard. But this is what Jesus was doing. Jesus was working hard in the temple, getting ready for the ministry, for the, to be honest with you, the hell he was going to go through. The 3 years of hell he was literally going to go through. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees, of how they were pushing on him. He had to prepare himself and wait for when he was ready, when God was ready to put him out there in ministry. No one worked harder. As Vince Lombardi said, the great coach where he was criticized, that he didn't know enough about football. He won 2 Super Bowls, won a bunch of NFL championships. Vince Lombardi said, it's not about getting knocked down. It's about getting up. This boy in this temple surely got knocked down as he was executed on a cross. He was knocked down. And for 3 days, for 3 days until Easter Sunday. He didn't stay down very long. He got up. He got up on Easter Sunday, didn't he? We have to get up. We have to get up. Jesus got up 3 days. We have to stay up. If we're going to be successful as an organization, as a person, as a church, we have to get up and we have to wipe off the negativities, turn the negativities into positivities, and it doesn't even work, a negative into a positive, and we have to keep sharpening our skills, our strengths and our weaknesses. And we have to be willing to fail. Jesus didn't fail, he was perfect, but he surely struggled. We as humans are going to fail over and over and over again. But we're not going to succeed unless we keep getting up, like Jesus did on that 3rd day. And when it's your time, and God's plan, God has a plan for each and every one of us. It doesn't matter how old we are. God has plans for us. And when it's our time, God's plan will be fulfilled if we do these steps and we stay on the path. But not when we're ready, but when God's ready. God will fulfill your plan. Amen.